Okay, can you hear me now? I forgot to turn my microphone on there. Checking to see if there's any reactions. Man, it's so weird to see me on screen. Okay, I'm gonna say Marco, and when you hear me on stream, you can say Polo. Marco. That is a really long polo.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep, okay, cool. Okay, finally someone said polo. Okay, so we are here with Ida. Let me turn on her microphone. Okay, Ida, say something so we can see if they can hear you as well.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
And that's also going to take another 30 seconds for them to hear you, so I guess we can start talking in the meantime. How are you? Should we talk about why we're not doing this in person?
Hey, everyone. Yeah,
I guess there's a reason for on both of our sides. You have a cold,
I
and
have a cold.
I'm dealing with something that a lot of people are dealing with in Europe at the moment, which is a bedbug infestation. So having a guest over did not seem like the most reasonable thing to do.
Thank you for that, Tristan. So, as Tristan takes a sip, so welcome, everyone. It's nice to be here. I have to say, I'm a bit under the weather, so it means that I have a cold and my voice can be a little bit cracky. So, sorry for the crackling. Yeah, sorry for that. But yeah, it's good to be here, and I look forward to the conversation. Welcome.
So, man, it's really too bad that I don't know how much reaction we can have from chat if there's such a delay. I guess we'll just have to look at things like every minute or so to see if we didn't miss anything important.
Yeah.
Um, but I do want to ask chat if everyone watching has seen the latest video we put out. Was it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago on Iran? Because obviously Ida is was a huge part of that video. Was the kind of the main character in that video. Um, and yeah, that's why we wanted to make this video, this live, to talk about kind of some behind the scenes things, some answer some questions, maybe talk about some things that we weren't able to include in the video.
Yeah, that would be interesting for me to see as well. Like, did people watch the video? What did they think about it? And what can be improved? Actually, what could have been improved, or what they thought could have been added? Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be
that is a good
interesting.
question. So I'll keep an eye on chat to see what they say. But for starters, I'm actually curious what you think could have been improved from your side. Like, are there any things that you would have done differently if you could?
Yeah, from my side, I think looking at the finished product, I really liked it. I thought it was really well done. Of course, after you shot it and edited it, it was really well done. But there were things that afterwards I thought, okay, it's a pity that we could not include this because, for example, what happened after with the Iran protest was that there was also a big movement in the art scene where actually lots of artists started putting out music, songs, and things like that. I would have loved to talk about those things actually as well, and I think I included that in our research as well. For example, off the top of my head, the thing that I wanted to mention as well, but there wasn't really room for, or didn't really fit in the edit in the end, was like the protest songs that actually somehow became the anthem of the 2022 Iran Revolution. The one, for example, was the song Baraye, which were an Iranian artist, Shervin Hajipur, actually wrote based on the tweets that was put out by the Iranian protesters. They were actually talking about their desires and wishes for a free democratic Iran, and he compiled those wishes and desires into a song and called it For the Sake of, or Baraye in Farsi. The song became an immediate hit and the anthem of the revolution, actually. But then the artist was arrested and the song was taken down from his Instagram or social media channels. But it was already like everywhere in the world. And every protest that we went to, it was sung and moved the people. It made everyone super emotional. Actually, I heard it so many places. The song was later on actually recognized by a Grammy Award, which was the first of its kind, I must say, for social justice. So I would have loved to talk about that as well, but really maybe it didn't really fit in the narrative of the video. But yeah, this is an example of something that I would have liked to mention, for example, but maybe it can be mentioned at other time or discussed at some other place as well. Yeah. So that was it.
Yeah, there's something kind of related to that was the what was I gonna say? Um, we actually shot a scene at the protest that we went to together of you telling me about there was a Bella Ciao, the what is it? I guess you can call it like kind of communist anthem or
Yeah,
whatever.
well, the thing
And
is that yeah, with the Bella Ciao, well, everyone probably knows the Bella Ciao song. So Iranian and especially the Iran protest movement, they also came up with their own version of it, which became somehow like a protest song as well. And even here, for example, in Berlin and around the world, it was sung. Or if you would go to social events or protest events here in Germany, they would actually sing it, which was quite interesting. But then afterwards, when I was doing the research about the cybersecurity threats against protests and activists, I realized the ATP that we mentioned in the video, Charming Kitten, had actually used the name Bella Ciao as the name of their latest malware, which was, I found it really, in a way, really ironic.
yeah, kind of the
So
hackers trolling
yeah,
activists, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It was trolling. Yeah, exactly. And that was interesting. We talked about it as well, but yeah, again, maybe it didn't really fit into the narrative of the video. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so I actually don't know how to pronounce Kuriteyu. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is saying which I kind of mentioned in the video that I kind of agree was I think it was he says or they say I found the last part of the video with the advice not that interesting, so maybe we could have added the missing elements instead of that, which
Mm-hmm.
I agree that the last part of the video felt a bit weird. I mentioned in the video like I didn't really know how to conclude the video. Um, Earlier we were like when I was finishing the editing and I was sending you some of the early drafts, you were also telling me that it ended a bit abruptly. It
Mm-hmm.
was like it was hard. The thing is, it's kind of hard to piece together a narrative that flows because sometimes you want to talk about something but there's just nowhere where it fits in the video. It's kind of hard to you're like, well, point A flows to point B flows to point C. Point B could also flow to point D, but then point D doesn't flow to point C. So we have to choose between these two in order to like sometimes there's it's hard to pick the best version of the thread of the video so that everything that matters fits in there. And it did feel like the advice was an important point to end on, which is why we kind of went with that rather than just talking about like activists, like artists
It's
around the
actually,
movement.
yeah, it's actually quite interesting to hear what our commentator had to say about that. Actually, thank you for your comment. Maybe
Man
indeed
Without
it
Head is
felt
saying that they're a man without head. So yes, he's a big fan of you, Ida.
oh, thank you so much. Welcome to
So,
our stream. Thank you. I just wanted to say something about the comment that came about the end of the video. The ending of the video, I actually heard from some other people that they actually found the tips and the advice at the end of the video quite helpful and useful. Maybe it did feel a little bit abrupt, but yeah, we were trying to do our best with what we had. And in the grand scheme of things, with what we had and what we were able to do, I think it was not too bad. But of course, there's always room to improve. And that's,
and
of course, always the case. Yeah,
and to follow up on as well in the future. Um,
true.
because yeah, obviously this story isn't really finished. The when you approached me with this idea for the video, it was just a few weeks after the German intelligence agency published the report on
Yes.
Charming Kitten, and obviously that's not going to be the end of it. There's going to be more things about that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, looking back and like look at what we did in the video, it is always it's good to keep it in mind that like it's these cybersecurity threats are never going to go away actually. So they're gonna although we talked about Charming Kitten being one of the lazier ATPs in using
Yeah.
they use and then they reuse their infrastructure because they don't have the capability or the tech, or they're just really lazy, but they're not going to go away. So the threat is always going to be there. And it's always interesting to look back at the research and what has been done and what is left to be done, actually. So in that sense, we really scratched the surface, and there's always more room, like room to do more. Yeah.
Yeah. There on my side, there's a few. There's like a couple of things that I hesitated about including. Well, I mean, one that I hesitated about including, and one that I just completely forgot to include and felt really stupid because. So, the main part of me talking to the camera in this video, you do most of the talking, but the main part where I talk to the camera is when I'm talking about kind of the definitions and international examples of transnational repression. And I remember writing the script for that. And then I was like out doing something, whatever. I was traveling. I think I was in Poland for the election. And I remembered, oh, obviously, I need to include the killing of Jamal Khashoggi in that section. And I forgot to do it. And then I shot it. And then while I was cutting the final video, I realized I forgot to shoot that, and I like there was no way for me to like go back and shoot it with the video projector and everything. So it was like, okay, well, I guess that example that is probably one of the most discussed examples of transnational repression of the last several years is just completely omitted from there. It's not that I didn't know about it. It's just like yeah, completely slipped my mind. And the other one is
Yeah.
actually a few comments that pointed this out, and I think it's an interesting kind of question. Is a lot of people are saying, well, the U.S. does this as well, and yeah, they do. But my question to you is like, would you put that in the same category what the U.S. does? Because obviously, like when there's, I'm thinking years back there was the murder of I mean the drone killing slash murder slash whatever of an American citizen called Anwar al-Awlaki, who was a member of Al Qaeda, but he wasn't, as far as I know, actively participating in the Al Qaeda activities. He was more of an incitement for it and kind of encouraging people to do that. And obviously, they killed him with a drone strike. Does
Yeah,
that do?
well, we don't
Yeah,
we
would you
don't have to
count
even
that?
go that far back.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, also like we can also mention this in regards with what happened with Qasem Soleimani, the Quds Force general, who was actually also killed in a drone attack by the US in Iraq. Yeah, so these are cases that obviously happen. And then they are also, of course, maybe then regarded as cases. But like, when you look at maybe it would be very difficult to talk about the moral questions here. But of course, in this particular video, we were looking at Iran. There are always like room to discuss other countries as well and what they do, and as well, of course. But then it would become a little bit this question of whataboutism, which I
Exactly.
think is
Yeah.
like, exactly. So it's like, yes, I know it happens, yeah, but we are discussing this topic, for example, right now in this special video. Of course, maybe there would be research, another video where like, yeah, you can look at what the US does, for example, and somebody can come in and discuss that as well. So yeah, that as well. So
Yeah, that's exactly the thing is like I thought while I was writing the script, should I include this? And I don't think I don't think it's incorrect to say that the US does this as well. Whether you think that it's a valid oh yeah, well I have two comments that I want to get to here that that are both very interesting questions that we could probably talk about for half an hour. So I'll get to those in a
sure.
second. But yeah, there's a whether the question of whether it's the same thing to say, you know, I don't know, the U.S. like kidnapping is the word that we use for other arrests in the case of like Belarus. So I guess like you can compare that to when the U.S. arrests a member of Al Qaeda or ISIS or someone like that and brings him to Guantanamo Bay. And I'm not saying it's entirely invalid, but I was also thinking, okay, that is an entire conversation on its own that doesn't really have its place in this video, which is why I decided to leave it out because I just felt like I can't really just name drop the US without going into a whole tangent of justifying why and like in what way it's the same thing or not, like what justify the differences and the similarities. So I decided that it wasn't a rabbit hole that we had the time to go into.
Yeah, exactly. And I honestly want to refer to one of your own videos that you put out talking about why everything can be a bit biased. So
Yeah.
because our time is limited, the scope of things we can do is limited. Maybe we would like to talk about everything, but that's what happens in journalism, is that you can only address certain aspects of certain things. And as I said, you can only scratch the surface, but it doesn't mean those things don't happen. They do, and they worth research actually, and they should be looked into as well. And yeah, this is what we did in the scope of this video, and hopefully there's always room for more things as well. Yeah.
I'm gonna do just a quick note of housekeeping before I get to the two questions that I noted down. So a couple of people asked in the YouTube chat about the Discord. So there's now a Discord that we just started a couple of hours ago. It's everything is like empty, like brand new. There's no special anything there. There's no organization. It's just like the default settings for now. But I have no idea what to do with the Discord, but it's there and it's going to be in the on-screen chat for streams in the future that I hope will happen more often. So if you want to join the Discord, I posted the link on the community page on the YouTube channel or on the Instagram. I posted an Instagram story with the link as well. And number two is especially with the delay between the stream and chats, it's really hard to keep up with comments. So if you want to make sure that your comment is seen, you can either join our Patreon, patreon.com/barelyinformed, or you can do a YouTube dono, and I'll make sure that we reply to every YouTube dono. But for now, there is a question from Bobo about Gaza, but we'll talk about Gaza in a bit, so that will come a bit later. For the moment, Flyfruit is asking, have you guys thought of taking more serious safety measures to keep yourself more incognito? For example, maybe make videos with just a white wall in the background. And that is a whole thing that we did have to consider.
Yeah.
We actually had to have a conversation yesterday ahead of this stream to figure out exactly what we could and couldn't talk about on stream. Because as I said in the conclusion of the video, like there are things that happen behind the scenes that we won't be able to talk about. But definitely in the middle of making the video, I don't remember if it was after we just shot you talking to the camera or if it was the day that we shot the 2 interviews of Ozzy and Daniela.
It was the
But
day after we shot my segments,
yeah,
actually.
and you sent me a message that I can't repeat, but essentially, uh, we had serious concerns about someone's safety, and we almost scrapped the video as a result of that. And so yeah, that was definitely a conversation. We wondered how we could do maybe like anonymize everything and take measures to do that. In the end, we decided not to. But we did, for example, in the shots that are at your apartment, we were very careful. Even though the window is visible, we were careful not to have anything visible out the window that would make it, for example, possible to geolocate where you live. And that was definitely something
Exactly.
that we had in mind for that. Yeah. Do you wanna say some more about that?
I will talk about that a little bit because maybe that's also interesting for people who are interested in verification and geolocation. Yes, I have looked into geolocation as part of investigative journalism. I'm really interested in that. But of course, I'm not comparable to people who are experts in this field. And I remember when we were shooting our segments, my place, I was telling Tristan, he was showing me the background. And he was like, "Oh, but you cannot really see this building." And I was like, "Man, this is actually enough, enough what you can see. It's actually enough to geolocate me." And yeah, um, yeah. So it's enough actually to geolocate me, and that was interesting. But the security concern, the thing that about that, which is interesting, and I would like to mention. Um, the parts that we shot, like my segments, when I'm talking about my worries and my concerns, actually, this came before our big fright that I had actually about the safety concerns of someone. And it is really interesting that just being faced with that, how how it makes you afraid. And that was exactly how I was feeling afterwards, because it was not really about me, but about the safety of someone like I cared about. And then it puts everything into perspective as well, like people, activists, journalists out there who are risking their lives and doing that on a daily basis. I think what came out of the video that we've decided to listen to our own security advice a little bit more and take care of that. And I think the security advice, although they may sound really basic and rudimentary, they are actually to a certain extent um, good. And I'm not sure if I discussed this with Tristan, but there was, I think, sorry, Tristan, there was a moment that actually somebody tried to break into my Microsoft account, but since I had two-factor authentication, they couldn't get in. They just said, "Oh yeah, somebody tried to break in, but since you have two-factor, they couldn't get the other factor." And it was unsuccessful. The only thing that I got was that it was an Android device and nothing else. And I couldn't even geolocate where it was from. But things like that could happen. So we have to, yeah, we have to be careful. But I don't think we have done anything really extreme. Just been careful about the advice that we've provided at the end of the video. Yeah.
Yeah, that gets into the second question that I wanted to that I saw from chat, which is copyright, a copyright. By the way, copyright. The pun in your name only works in French. You can't pronounce it correctly in English. Um, since the release of the video, have you noticed more weird things targeting you online, your online accounts and activities? So that kind of um, uh, is the thing that you were talking about. I have a lot of examples. It's not specifically since the release of the video. It's basically, so a few months ago, and this was right before I had created my YouTube channel, but I hadn't started posting yet. And I started to get occasional hacks of various social media. I had like my Instagram was hacked and someone posted a crypto scam on my account with some like Elon Musk reference or something like that, which I was kind of taken aback by. Weirdly enough, they didn't change my password. They didn't like do anything to make it inaccessible to me. They just posted a scam as a post. So I was able pretty quickly to delete it and change my password, add two-factor authentication. Later on, I learned that that was most likely connected to just a data leak of an old account that I had on a different website that was leaked a few months earlier, and that's how they got my passwords, which is why I ended up like changing all of my passwords. But what happened was, as time went on, that would happen every once in a while. Someone like I would change my passwords on all of the accounts that were like the main ones, the Facebook, the Gmail, the Instagram, and every once in a while I would get a notification, oh, a suspicious login on this account that I'd completely forgotten I had, like Mega or whatever other random like website accounts. So I had to like remember, and that's why when you mentioned doing a deep clean, I was like, that is really like, yeah, like that's the ideas of how to do that was like going through your email or going through your password manager to find old accounts is probably a good idea. But it definitely started to get worse and especially more sophisticated when we started to research the story. So, like I mentioned in the video, 2 days before we interviewed Daniela, and I didn't know Daniela was going to say this in the interview. I only heard her talk about that, her own YouTube account hack, after we shot the interview because I couldn't hear her during the interview while I was editing. Is when I discovered that. But the same thing happened to me like 2 days before we shot the interview, where I woke up one morning and I had two-factor authentication activated on Facebook, and it's two-factor authentication that's supposed to be like the most secure version, which is when you have an app on your phone that gives you like a number that is generated regularly. And weirdly enough, I got a message on my email saying, here's your Facebook login, like two-factor authentication code, which is not supposed to come by email. And I was like, that's weird, but I have two-factor authentication, so I don't need to worry about it. They can't get that email. And then 5 seconds later, I get a notification. Did you log in from this random city in France? I was like, no, I did not. And thankfully, I was able to react fast enough that they immediately logged like that login attempt out, but it did manage to get into my account. So I again changed all of my passwords, like changed my Facebook password, thinking, okay, I don't know what the hell happened with the email thing, but I didn't think immediately of changing my email. And then it happened two more times in the same day. And I realized not only because the Facebook password was new, and they must have gotten not just in my Gmail accounts, but in my password manager to find my new Facebook password that I changed during that day, and they managed to find the new one immediately after. So that was really freaky to me. It happened 3 times. I ended up finding a solution to completely deactivate the email two-factor authentication thing, and change my passwords again, and do all like the manual like click the button to log out of all other devices and accounts.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I saw, well, at first when that happened, I
Tristan,
just
sorry, I have
yeah.
to interrupt you for a second. The YouTube like screen is now actually maximized on me. Maybe you wanna have it on you.
Okay. The yeah, there you go. Sorry about that. The what was I gonna say?
Sorry,
I lost
I
my train of thought.
interrupted you.
So yeah,
It's okay.
when that happened on that day, that was before the Daniela interview, and I just thought it was the continuation of the work that we'd been of the hacking attempts that I had. But then when that interview happened, I was like, that's a really big coincidence for both of our accounts to be hacked just days apart, and it seemed really strange. I still don't know if it was just a coincidence, which I'm going to assume it was. But there was that, and then after that, I continued to get on smaller and smaller accounts, accounts that there's no reason for people even try to hack me. Just notifications of like, oh, your two factor authentication code for logging into this tiny app that I have to sell videos as a freelance journalist. And it's like
Mm.
no one knows about that app. How the hell would someone try to hack my account on there? You know.
How does that make you feel actually?
Weird on that one because I don't really use that account anymore. As soon as I got because the thing is when I got those within like 2 hours I got like five SMS messages of with a two-factor authentication code, and I was like, I don't know how fast they are going to react if I contact them, the website, about like doing something for security. There's no um, customizations I can do on my end to make my account more secure than just activating two-factor authentication. So I just decided to delete my account there because I didn't use it anymore. And I would rather that
Yeah.
than them being able to get in and maybe somehow access like some payment information that I have to be paid for the videos that I sold or stuff like that. So that was pretty freaky.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly. I saw one of our viewers also now
Water.
commented that a similar thing happened to their Twitter account, and she actually just deleted the account altogether. So yeah, I can
Yeah,
understand that
I mean,
it
if
gives,
you're not using Twitter,
yeah,
you might as well. Yeah.
you might as well.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
And
exactly.
something funny happened to me yesterday that kind of comes into this category, but it's more on the point of like the paranoia that comes with when this starts to happen on so many different accounts. The light system in my house is like it's smart lights. It's like I can control them with my smartphone. And yesterday, the lights that right now I actually have a fancy light, studio light here, not because I wanted to have this for the stream. I usually just have my normal light bulbs above me. But they started to turn. At first, it was just like they turn off and on for a second, and then they would turn off and on and off and on and off and on and off and on for like 5 minutes. And I was like, someone is messing with me. Like I disconnected the hub that controls the lights, and it stopped, and it was working fine. And then I like restarted the system and everything. And after a few minutes, off and on and off and on and off and on. And I was like, okay, someone is just trying to mess with me. Turns out, no, it's just that the electrical device that controls these lights was failing, and it just crapped out on me yesterday. And I had a huge freak out where I changed all of my password on all of my smart light system. But no, for now I just do not have normal desk lights on over my desk. So yeah, turns out
So
as far as I can tell, it wasn't a hack after all.
yeah, exactly. It was just hopefully a technical malfunction.
Yeah, but again, the timing is really was really interesting.
Yeah, I remember when we talked with our cybersecurity expert, Sandro, he mentioned something, and then I also remember that my washing machine connects to my Wi-Fi. So I was thinking about that. I was like, okay, so it might like at one point creep up on me.
Yeah, no,
So no, but yeah,
and it's a good question. Like the washing machine thing is like, okay, what information can they get from hacking into your washing machine? And I'm not sure
right.
about the washing machine, but there's definitely information that they could get from hacking into my light system to know when I'm home and when I'm not, for example, based on if the lights are on or not. I mean, you can just also do that if you know where I live and you look at into the window, you'll see if the lights are on. But it is definitely like there's some information that the fact that we use digital tools and devices that are connected like that is always something that is potentially vulnerable in that way.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to actually talk about the comment to that fly fruit. Thank you, fly fruit. You said something about yeah, smart homes can be vulnerable, but actually, you're absolutely right. I think they actually need a good hacker, someone with knowledge to break into them, and that also brings us to the point that our cybersecurity expert Sandro mentioned that if they are trying to do things like that, you might be okay. They assign you someone, yeah. So someone has to be really on your case to try to break into those systems. Actually, yeah, these systems are not immediately accessible to everyone out there, but yeah, there is also a possibility for those things to be hacked. Yeah.
Jay Ramirez is saying, y'all, what do you think about Estonia as the first digital democracy and that almost every service is digitalized? I don't know. I'd have to look into this more, but I read years ago about. I don't remember if it was Estonia or another country in that area. It was probably Estonia. That because so much of their services were digitalized, they were super, super vulnerable to digital warfare from Russia. And I think Russia had managed to hack some pretty significant parts of their infrastructure because everything was so connected. And that's something that's going to happen more and more, especially with like more and more instability and like Iran getting into like going after dissidents also means that now they have the infrastructure to do kind of larger scale hacks of whatever countries they want to go after, and Russia has been doing that for a long time as well. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's definitely something that's concerning.
Yeah, exactly. But interesting comment about Estonia, actually, because I've heard as part of as part of like a digital diplomacy, which is interesting term to be used these days, Luxembourg is trying to store some of the information of its citizens on Estonian servers. So that was interesting to hear. But this is something going on as well. Of course, yeah, the systems have to be protected as well. And yeah, so
Hafton is asking, but sometimes is hacking a valid political tool? Sometimes you expose political decisions made behind closed doors. Well, I mean, yeah, well, I'm thinking of WikiLeaks, but I don't know how much of WikiLeaks information was gotten through hacking or just through leaks of whistleblowers. It can be a tool in that sense. It can also be a weapon. Um, in a lot of ways. Like for example, there was that famous. I think at this point we're pretty sure that it was an Israeli computer virus that attacked a nuclear facility in Iran and managed to completely cripple the facility. Do you know about that one? Maybe you know more about it, and you can talk about it
um,
some more.
actually, speaking of that, there's a very good movie. I will look it up and say the name actually later on. I don't remember the name, but I think it was called Stuxnet, if I'm not wrong. I
Yeah,
will
that's the
quickly
name of
look
the
it
virus
up.
for sure.
Yeah, I think that was the name. That was a really good documentary. Of course, that was not the only time, but that was one of the times that yeah, of course, as part of the let's call it, I don't know, regional competition, enmity, whatever you want to call it, show that's going on between Iran and Israel. Of course, Israel always tries to undermine Iranian nuclear facility, given the discourse that Iran has on Israel. So that's okay. Not understandable, but this is what is happening. And yeah, they introduced malware into the digital infrastructure of nuclear facilities in Iran, and of course this disrupts the systems. This creates problems for the machines. At the same time, it also creates create problems for the people that work in those facilities, and it is indeed happening. And of course, I would say that I have no really deep knowledge about what malware Israel is using, of course, but their malware must be quite strong.
I mean,
And
there's the
I have
famous.
to.
Sorry.
What is that?
I just wanted to bounce off Israeli malware. There's the famous Pegasus example as well.
Of course.
They're
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Israel is probably maybe even I mean, as the example of Pegasus shows, we can probably talk about it some more if some people in the chat don't know what that is. But as the example of Pegasus shows, like Israel is one of, if not the most advanced country in terms of malware. Pegasus is a piece of software that they sold to governments that allowed governments to basically target anyone they wanted to surveil, and it I don't remember if it went through WhatsApp or through another messaging service, and it basically took control of essentially the entire phone, could turn on the microphone, could do a bunch of things without anyone needing to click on a link in some cases. Like there was no social engineering or mistake that needed to be done by the person who was targeted. They managed to find a
Exactly.
backdoor into the phone with no knowledge of the target to be able to surveil like activists and journalists and all of that. And that was a piece of software sold to governments by a private Israeli company, which is pretty freaky.
Exactly, exactly. That's actually what you said is actually really interesting. And I'm not sure, but Mohammed bin Salman used the same software or malware to actually break into Jeff Bezos's phone, but it was a similar thing. Jeff Bezos actually received a message from MBS, and then he just opened it, and it automatically installed the malware onto Bezos's phone, and it started basically spying on Bezos, and then afterwards he had to bring in charges against MBS. That was a whole scandal.
Mm.
But yeah, things like that happen. Exactly.
Bobo's saying there's a good Apple TV show called Tehran about a Mossad agent infiltrating Tehran that he
Yeah,
recommends.
I,
I think I've
I just
seen
saw
things
who's
about it, but
that?
I haven't watched it yet.
Okay, yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that show, but I will definitely take a look into it. Although we were discussing, actually, we were discussing entertainment with each other yesterday, and um, you mentioned having watched Jon Stewart's Rosewater, and I
Yeah.
still haven't watched that. And so I cannot really give my opinion on Rosewater. But I also mentioned that sometimes you have to, although I must say now research is being done in a more in-depth manner, but sometimes portrayals can be actually downright like caricature-like,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they look shallow. But I must say that there have been examples where there is better research and things look more natural, and things that you look at and watch and you say, yes, that's reliable, that's how it is. And so yeah,
I would be curious
things like that.
to hear what you think of Rosewater because Jon Stewart made it with the journal. Like it's based on a true story of an Iranian journalist who was arrested and tortured for I think he just freelanced for a Western news company if I remember correctly, or he was interviewed by one, and that was enough for Iran to accuse him of being a spy. And Jon Stewart made the film with that journalist. So I'd be curious to hear what have me myself not having ever been to Iran. I don't know, like I have no firsthand knowledge of what the country is like, so I don't know how accurately the film depicts the events, the real life events that happened in 2009.
Yeah,
Um,
hopefully, yeah.
sorry, like I just have a question from someone, but you can like bounce off on that
No,
first. Yeah.
it just no, that's it actually. Go ahead.
So Ozark from Patreon is asking about our video. Did these protests ultimately achieve anything in Iran, even if it's something flawed like the authorities announcing that they were reforming the morality police?
Yeah, well, okay, talking about that, actually, I actually wrote an article for Newsweek, just titled, Why is the Fall of the Morality, why talks about removal of morality police prove the false dawn, which, because for a while after the protest, it looked like they are backtracking on the morality police. And they said, okay, there's not going to be morality police anymore, which is so no guidance patrol, and there will be no added pressure from that. But it actually was, they were gone for a few weeks or months, and then they came back, actually, and then they came back more in force, and which was which was quite interesting to see. But what happened, what it achieved, the protest, I must say, something in the mentality of the people changed, not the oppressor, but the protesters and the people. Some people were like, we will do what we like. If you want to wear hijab, we will wear hijab. And if somebody approaches us and says something, we won't pay attention, we don't care, and we will do our things. So I think that what protests maybe did achieve was that it removed a layer of fear that was there before, and now there are people who actually are out there, and then they don't pay any attention to what the Islamic Republic is saying. But of course, as we discussed in the video as well, the trend hasn't changed. Even if the protests are really big, normally on the government side, on the regime side, nothing changes. Nothing's become less strict or. And so in that sense, maybe I should say nothing changed. But in some senses, in the sociological ways, certain things did change actually. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's often hard to pinpoint to specific change with protest movements, regardless of what country it is. It's kind of like with even in quote unquote democracies, like look at concessions gotten by the Yellow Vest movement or the anti pension reform movement in France, and like they did some of the biggest protests in like European history and got very little. I mean, the Yellow Vest movement did get the government to like move back a little bit on some things, but essentially most of their grievances were left basically swept aside and unheard, which is what government tends to do with a lot of protest movements these days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I don't even know if we even need to go into this. But Tony Martinez is asking, on a completely different topic, why are NATO and USA stopping peace talks for Ukraine and Russia? And I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Actually, I won't go into topics I'm not really an expert on, or I cannot have an opinion on that topic actually. So no, I won't get into that. I would have talked about it if I had read more recent things, but my attention has been occupied elsewhere, unfortunately. So sorry.
I mean, we can have a quick look, but just like if we want to make this an entire topic that we like research during this stream, we could. But just as a quick note, like it's not just NATO and the USA stopping the peace talks. Every time someone tries to propose terms for peace talks, no one ever agrees with the other people's preconditions. Even China tried to propose a compromise that was very friendly to Russia, and Russia said, no, we're not even going to engage on a discussion with those with those prerequisites that China is asking for us to engage on. So Russia's also stopping the peace talks because they won't accept any concessions, and Ukraine is not interested in having peace talks because any conversation Russia is trying to start always starts with, well, we get to keep all the territory we took, and Ukraine is not going to be okay with that. So it's going to take a lot more for everyone to come to the table, if there ever is an opening to come to the table. But for the moment, at least, Ukraine's not interested in ceding any of the territory that they had a few years ago to Russia. Russia's not interested in giving back any of the territory that they took. They're apparently not interested in any peace talks that involves Ukraine still having a military, or I don't know if that's still up to date or not. And NATO is essentially mostly backing Ukraine's position. So unsurprisingly, there's a deadlock on that, and it's just going to continue the way it's going right now.
The only thing I can say about that, actually, and this was something that came out maybe a couple of weeks ago, was that how they have reached some sort of a stalemate. And it was the first time a Ukrainian general openly discussed that. And he talked about how both sides are actually kind of, maybe it would be a little bit superficial to say, but equal in the sense that like they don't have enough capability and capacity to make a breakthrough, actually. And this was what they had actually warned about, that this could become a really long war. And unfortunately, with the attentions now being diverted, so it is indeed a stalemate. And I have to kind of also agree with the fact, with the cover that I saw of Zelensky on the time, and it says Zelensky is kind of fighting a lonely war, in the sense that, okay, yes, people had already predicted, experts had predicted that there will be some sort of fatigue in providing support to Ukraine. And whether we want to acknowledge that and we want to agree with that or not, it feels like now, with attentions diverted, it is indeed a really lonely war for Zelensky. But unfortunately cannot talk more about what is happening right now between USA and NATO Yeah.
Yeah, we obviously don't have any insider information, but it is
Yeah.
interesting that especially with what's happening in Israel, between Israel and Gaza right now, apparently there's a lot of fear by Ukrainians that they're kind of going to be forgotten and people are going to stop sending them some of the resources that they need to continue fighting Russia's invasion. So yeah, that's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
I'm curious if that does start to happen, how Ukraine will react and what they're going to start to do. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. We got
Yeah.
another comment that I wanted to read out loud. It seems like you two are a great journalistic team, which thank you very much, Elias. Are there any plans
Thank
to
you.
potentially work together on future videos again?
Well, basically, to be absolutely honest, like the video was out, and then the next thing I told Tristan, okay, what's the next thing we're gonna work on?
Yeah.
And because I must admit it was really great, without any false flattery, it was really great working with Tristan, and it all went very smoothly. But not in foreseeable future. Hopefully some other time. He has already some other projects that he's working on, and I'm also busy with other things. And yeah, but I'm pretty sure there will be other opportunities where we will work together.
Yeah, I'd love to. Obviously, so do you want to talk about how this specific video came about and how you came up with the topic and how you approached me? And because I thought that was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, of course. Like basically what is happening at the moment is that I am doing in-depth research because I am trying to do my PhD, specifically with European policy and Iran. And this was a topic which was really interesting for me. So I am actually toying with the idea, and I was sitting down and doing research on that in depth. And then, of course, I came across the cybersecurity report, which was published by the Bundesverfassungsschutz, which is Germany's internal intelligence services. And I was like, this is absolutely horrendous, interesting. It's really relevant for me as well. It is relevant to my research. And I started looking to that. And the more I compile things together, and of course, this was before the anniversary of the killing of Mahsa Jina Amini. And I thought to myself, this is really relevant for Tristan's, I think, for Stan's. Oh, but this is really relevant for the YouTube channel. And I just reached out to him and said, hey, would you be interested in doing something together? And then we met and we talked about it, and yeah, we took it from there. And this is how the video came to be.
Yeah, so for me, it was interesting because we had worked together before. We worked at a news agency together a few years ago. And when you approached me saying, hey, I maybe have an idea, can we meet for coffee? I was intrigued, but you mentioned that it was about Iran, and I had just started a YouTube channel that I wanted to mostly, for the moment at least, be focused on Europe. So I was like, well, I'll, of course, happy to meet for coffee no matter what, whether there's a video out of this or not. But I was kind of preparing to say no. And I was preparing to tell you that, yeah, look, it's a really interesting topic, but it's just not something that I'm equipped to do because I didn't think there was a European angle, and I like to do as much like in person, like on the field thing as possible. And so when you came with an already pretty clear idea that was specifically like almost as if it was tailor made for the YouTube channel and for the content that I was interested in, to me it was an instant like a no brainer that yeah, I definitely had to say yes. And if there's other topics like this in the future, I'm definitely open to working with you again on those. So yeah, that would be great.
That's great to hear. I actually saw a comment by one of our viewers, LOL. They asked about what I thought protesters' thoughts on the Iran nuclear deal. Actually, on the Iran nuclear deal, I did one of my master's theses on the Iran nuclear deal, And then, so basically, I was discussing the legitimization and delegitimization of the Iranian nuclear deal. But I was looking at to governments and news headlines and things like that. What I realized over the years since I have done my master's thesis is that protesters' thoughts and regarding the nuclear deal has become really, well, they are skeptical, they are very pessimistic, and they don't uh, they they actually got to the point, because we had a nuclear deal back in 2015, but it didn't really do anything for the lay people, for the everyday life of the people. It didn't change much. And afterwards, when Trump actually backtracked of the nuclear deal and said, like, no, it's off the table, it was just for Iranians, it was no big surprise because we have also got used to that as well, or in the sense that, like, oh yeah, there is an agreement, nothing changes. So yeah, we expected that it would happen. And right now, I must say, I haven't really actively looked into that, but it looks like it is really at this point, which is like is a stalemate as well. Although there were, I remember when the protests were raging in 2022, so last year when the protests were raging, they were also kind of a little bit off-puttish, the European policymakers and Joseph Borrell. They didn't really want to get into it or discuss it, but they were obviously keen on it. And this was one of the key factors that actually really angered the protesters, because it looked like that Europe and America are not doing much or enough for Iranian protesters and against the Iranian regime, because they still have high hopes that the Iranian nuclear deal gonna get back into business, and then they will open up the business route and the trade route, obviously in the light of the fact that Iran down the road, not now, down the road can become a gas provider as well, which was an important question after the invasion. So yeah, but Iranians overall, the protesters have been despondent in that sense, pessimistic, despondent. Really, um, they don't believe anything can change.
Do you think there's a big difference between the protesters' view on the deal and Iranian leadership? Like, are the
Yeah,
protesters critical of the Iranians' position on this, or how they're leading the negotiations, or are they essentially blaming it on the U.S.'s side?
yeah, they're always blaming other parties. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's uh, if you look at it, um, at one point you might think to yourself, okay, so it's not that Iran is totally wrong. It's because promises have been made and promises have been broken. So, but I think there is actually a difference between what the government wants and says, and also between what the protesters want. I never thought, based on what I see on activists' pages and what they're talking about. Let's say it like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really talking about it at all. They've not, like in the past, let's say 1.5 years, I haven't looked up a post and say, oh, they're talking about the nuclear deal. I haven't really even seen that. It's not really even on people's mind, it seems. But things can also happen behind closed doors. Maybe they're not reflected in news headlines as well. So we are a little bit in the dark. I am,
Mm-hmm.
at least, in a little bit of a dark at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to move on to the Israel-Gaza topic that we talked about, seeing how we can cover it today?
Not really.
There was actually a question
Because,
earlier that I wrote down from Bobo about it.
yes,
That I
because this feels like we will open the Pandora box and there is no possibility to go back. But
Yeah,
yes, let's
definitely.
start with that.
The question earlier that's kind of a good transition is Bobo was asking thoughts on like what are the thoughts of Iranian expats on the situation in Gaza?
Very good question. Very good question. I must say, and interestingly, I would like to ask this viewer of ours why he said specifically Iranian expats and not Iranians. This really, the differentiation is actually there. Seeing what the Iranian expats are posting and talking to them, I have seen a lot of support for Palestinians inside Gaza. And this is something that I have to emphasize. There is a lot of support for Palestinians actually who are suffering inside Gaza. And this is like out of the question. If you're a human and if you have humanitarian views, you will feel nothing but empathy and sympathy for what is happening. But interestingly, and this is what I'm saying based on what I see on my social media accounts, there's a big difference between Iranian expats and the Iranians inside Iran, because Iran does support Hamas, like the Iranian regime, let's say, supports Hamas. And that since the Iranian regime is supporting Hamas, this creates a lot, it makes Iranians actually hate Hamas. And then sometimes by an extension, they don't want to care about what is happening in Gaza. As an example, and I will tell you that, what happened is that people in Iran, when they are retired, they receive pension, like many other countries. And a couple of, after the situation in Gaza started, the Iranian regime or the Iranian government deducted a noticeable sum from the pension of the people. And the reasoning behind that was that we're going to send this money as support for Palestine. And and you can imagine how people would actually respond to that. Like the people who are actually, whose livelihood is actually dependent on that, has creates an enmity in a way, which is understandable. Or another example that I can give you, we all remember the harrowing attack a couple of weeks ago on the hospital, which at the end of the day, it was really unclear, and this led to a very big discussion as well. And then, unfortunately, what I saw was a lack of apathy. Like there was an apathy among Iranians about that attack, and that made me feel really, really sad. Because what I could feel as an expat and talking to other expats was that I could feel a lot of sympathy. And for me, it is really foreign and disappointing to see my compatriots showing something completely different. But I must say, there must be people on both spectrums. And maybe my bubble is closed off and I'm not seeing everything. This is also a possibility as well.
Mm. Yeah, like I did want to go into I actually prepared a couple of things on that whole hospital thing because there's been a lot of discourse that I thought was really relevant, at least to the previous video that I made about media bias, um, regarding that the famous what's the name of that hospital? Yeah, so if we start to go into like researching topics on the fly, none of this is prepared from now on, apart from just like having thought about it for a couple of days. But I didn't take any notes. I didn't prepare any links, so we're basically gonna
No,
improvise
no,
everything
no
from here.
worries.
Yeah.
Flyfruit. Flyfruit is correcting me and saying that I should have said empathy and stuff.
Yeah. Fair
That's
enough.
correct. Sorry.
So what was the name of that hospital again? It was October 17th, if I'm not mistaken. Gaza Hospital, October 17. Um, yeah. So, for those who don't know, let me see if I can do this. There you go. Okay. So for those who don't know, This is probably the most discussed news story since the start of the conflict in between Israel and Hamas, is the way that it's portrayed, like described the most. Um, was this hospital in Gaza City that was struck on October 17th, and I'm not going to go through a full rundown of the story, but essentially was estimated originally. They said it was around 500 deaths, and what was happening was at that point, in the first week of the conflict, Israel had dropped 6,000 bombs on Gaza, which is as much as about as much as the U.S. dropped on Afghanistan during the highest points of the war in Afghanistan per year. So in 6 days, Israel had dropped as many bombs as the U.S. dropped on Afghanistan in an entire year, and a lot of news companies went with the story of this being an Israeli bomb, which, you know, a lot of news companies got a lot of criticism. Maybe need to do something about the chat not being visible on this white background. I'll have to maybe figure something out next time. Let me see if I can fix that right now. Can I do like a shape or something? Sorry, give me just a second.
Oh.
Let me do this. Okay. Behind the chat box. And something like this. Is that correct? There you go. Okay, that'll do. Yeah, that'll have to do. Whoops, not that. Is there Wikipedia in dark mode? I'll have to.
I think so, yeah.
I guess I could just do that, yeah. Where is the option to put Wikipedia in dark mode? Is it here? No, but there's Dark Reader. I'm not going to go into installing a Chrome extension for that. Maybe next time. Anyway, so this was a huge news story. A lot of news companies jumped on initially blaming Israel. And there's been a lot of criticism for that, and because obviously it turned out that it was more complicated than that, which we'll get to in a second. And the question is, I actually had a section of my video on news bias very briefly mention these kinds of situations where sometimes you have to run with a story before all the facts are in. And honestly, had I been in a newsroom the evening that that story was happening, I don't know. Like, it's complicated to just run with. Obviously, it's turned out it was not as simple as just assuming it was Israel's fault. Okay, I'm not sure what that's about. If you want to keep an eye on chat while I try to
I am.
make sense of
I'm
what I'm
looking,
saying.
yeah.
So yeah, it was obviously more complicated than just assuming it was Israel's fault, obviously, because it's a war and there's rockets being fired from all sides and misfires and all of that. But there are so many cases where, like, literally, as has been said a lot, like with 6,000 missiles being shot from Israel, it doesn't seem that unreasonable to have the starting assumption that it was a rocket from Israel. And immediately, Israel. Originally, I think there was a Twitter account that belonged to Israel that denied it, that claimed responsibility for it, and that congratulated like Israeli forces for shooting the hospital and did some rationalization. and then immediately retracted, and Israel started to deny that it was them, started to say that we do not shoot hospitals, which is hilarious because they have since been shooting more hospitals and refugee camps and other things. Um, but it turns out that in this case, the claim that Israel has made was that it was a rocket shot from, I guess it's the little brother of Hamas in Gaza, which is the Islamic Jihad, which is another less well-funded terrorist organization in Gaza. And Israel put out claimed that there was a specific video, on live streams, like news broadcast of the time. There were specific, looking for the video right now. Like there was a specific rocket that you can see on a live stream rising in the sky over the hospital and blowing up, and 8 seconds later the hospital blew up, and they said, okay, that's the hospital that was shot by Islamic Jihad. Turns out, even as that information started to come in, and a lot of media companies started to say, okay, no, it wasn't Israel who shot the hospital, it was Islamic Jihad. But it turns out that even that piece of information was inaccurate as well.
After the explosion...
Let me play this bit here, which is a really, really cool 3D reconstruction of two different angles of that rocket that was filmed over the skies of Gaza. That confirms reporting that was done 3 weeks after the bombing by the New York Times and the Washington Post. And I'm going to play this. Let me see if I can have it play for Ida as well. You won't have sound though, so you just have to follow on the stream, I guess. And I will make it like this. Okay, there you go. So I'm just going to play this.
After the explosion at Al Ahli Hospital on the 17th of October 2023, an Israeli spokesperson appears on CNN and BBC to claim that this video, which shows a mid-air explosion, captured the misfiring rocket responsible for the blast at Al Ahli. In fact, this missile is likely an Israeli interceptor unrelated to the Al Ahli blast. The footage captures a bright light in the sky, travelling upwards, then an explosion. 8 seconds later, we can see the blast at the hospital. We used 2 videos to triangulate the position of the missile. The first video was filmed on the phone of an Al Jazeera journalist. The second video was filmed from Tel Aviv. We geolocated both videos and used them to reconstruct the missile's trajectory in 3D. The trajectory shows the missile was launched from outside Gaza, near to a known Israeli Iron Dome site. The explosion took place at an altitude of 5 kilometers and 5.7 kilometers from the hospital, also outside Gaza. From an altitude of 5 kilometers, any fragments from this explosion would have reached the ground 31 seconds later in freefall. But the hospital blast occurred only 8 seconds later, meaning that the missile cannot be the cause of the Al Ahli hospital blast.
So yeah, that is really interesting. So it's a video posted by a Twitter account called Forensic Architecture, and like I would love to have the skills to do that kind of 3D reconstruction there. But it's not just their reporting. It's been confirmed by the New York Times and the Washington Post that the rocket that visually Israel said was the rocket that hit the hospital, turns out it wasn't that one. So we don't really know. It still seems like the most likely explanation was indeed a misfire by Islamic Jihad, but it's still not as clear as Israel initially claimed to be, because the evidence they pointed to as proof that it was shot from Gaza turns out that the rocket in question wasn't shot from Gaza, it was shot from Israel, and it was probably completely unrelated to the explosion at the hospital. So it was funny to see the media initially go with the assumption that it was Israel, and then retract and go with the assumption that Israel was right to say it was Islamic Jihad. And most people, as far as I know of, kind of stayed with that assumption that that yeah, Israel turned
After
out.
the explosion at El Ahli,
This is still playing. Most people seem to have stayed on the Israel update of them blaming Islamic Jihad for that, when it's still not as clear as they would like to make it appear. And I also wanted to discuss these kinds of visual verification things, because I think they're just incredibly useful and incredibly interesting to do. And you actually worked in a little bit of this when we worked at the news agency together.
Yeah, exactly. First of all, thank you so much for showing this video. This was really interesting, and I would like to, yeah, the 3D reconstruction, the triangulation actually is something that's done, of course, on an advanced level in news verification. And the extent I have done news verification in regards to with video news actually has been more trying to recognize first and foremost whether the videos that we are obtaining as a news agency or are actually videos that are old, or are they up to date? Are they from the location that we want them to be? And among other things, specifically talking about what is happening, for example, right now in Gaza, and the amount of misinformation that's been going around, I must say, for example, it was interesting to see, and it was also a little bit sad to see that there was a video that was put out, and they were claiming that this is an attack and it's a rocket attack that is being carried out in the context of a current conflict. But then, in reality of the situation, it only took probably someone to 2 minutes to realize that this video had been obtained from a video game. Probably you all saw that. But what that requires is that you run a simple verification, and normally you can also do it using a Chrome extension or a plugin like a vVerify or Invid, where you actually check for duplicates and archives.
Yeah,
and then
let me do that
looking at
live. If you can still see my screen, I'm going to install that plugin, like whatever plugin you recommend I use, and let's
yeah,
have a look together at how just a
sure,
normal news consumer can kind of
yeah.
check those
So
things, because it happens so often to see footage that a lot of people like to claim, oh, this is footage from the war and it's so damning for this or for whatever side that they're trying to push. And it turns
yeah,
out that it's completely unrelated footage from years ago in a completely different country. So
yeah.
yeah, tell me what to search for, and we'll
Like
install that and
basically,
have a
if
look
you
live.
search for in vid, you have to write in and then vid, and then you will see the first thing that comes up. Now you don't even have to go to the Chrome web store, I
Yeah,
think.
let's
Oh
just
yeah,
see
no,
if we
yeah, that's the
find
first
it.
thing. Yeah, perfect.
This one here,
The
fake news
fake
debunker in
news.
vid. Okay.
I think that's the one. Yes.
Okay, so let's add this to Chrome and have a look at how it looks, because I haven't used it. I have a different thing that is just a way to look for duplicates of screen caps from a video. But let's have a look at this and see how it works.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna open this. Whoops, where is it? Okay, so I have open toolbox, open assistant.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do from here?
Actually, you can open the toolbox. I haven't worked with it actually for a few years now. Yeah, you can, for example, a very important aspect that you can use here is keyframes. If you check keyframes, please. So
Okay.
basically, either you can here upload a file or put in a link. If, for example, imagine that you have received an unlisted of a video that a stringer or a producer has sent to you, and they're claiming that this video is current, up to date, and it's not archived or has not been sold to another third party. So there is an easy way to check this. You basically put the unlisted of the video in the insert the video URL. And what happens is that Invid creates keyframes for you. And then
Can we
you're
try to
using
find
the
a
key.
specific example? Like there were a lot of videos in recent days of oh, there was a video. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah,
Some pro-Palestinian activists were sharing a video claiming it was evidence that Israel had killed some of their own citizens during the October 7th attack. And let's see
interesting.
what Invid finds with that thing. Let me see if I can find that video.
Sure.
Um,
So yeah, just while Tristan is looking for that, this was like, as I said, this is still one of the basic things that one can use, but unfortunately, not everyone has the time, time, attention, or people are just really quick to jump into conclusion. And this was something I actually discussed with Stan yesterday as well. Was there are certain schemas that are present inside our brain, and it's just more convenient and comfortable to actually stick with those schemas. There are maybe fewer people who are willing to step outside their schemas and look for different views. And that's how, unfortunately, misinformation is propagated, because you see a video or you see a piece of information that just agrees with what you want to believe, and then you go with it, and you don't maybe take a moment to say, hey, but is this verified? Is this trustable? Is it coming from a trustable source? And I must say, even big news outlets and agencies and newspapers, they also have sometimes trouble verifying, and it just they also, in a push to put out juicy news as fast as possible, they somehow miss a step, or it's happening, everything is happening so fast. So in a push to publish things as fast as possible, sometimes things can go unnoticed. Verification may not happen very well, and that leads to problems and misunderstanding and miscommunication. And especially in the context of conflict, this happens really easily.
okay, so I found the video. It's a Twitter link, so I don't know if if that works with Invid. But this is
Okay,
a video that this fairly well-known Twitter account called Partisan Girl or Syrian Girl claims was a
okay.
video of a helicopter shooting Israeli people at the music
Let's
festival. This account is a
let's
well-known sharer of disinformation, I would have to say, which is why it's the example I'm using
Okay.
to see what the video
Did
comes
you
up with.
paste actually the video link then?
I
No, is
pasted
that
the
the video?
Twitter link here. I don't know how to
No,
do.
just
Oh yeah,
please click right. Yeah,
copy video
exactly.
address.
Copy video
Got it.
address, please. Yes, thank you.
Okay, let's do that instead. There you go.
Yeah,
Copy video address, submit, and let's see what it finds.
let's see what it produces. But yeah, this is, yeah, it's a tool that can be used easily, and it can be used for. Okay, then you scroll down. So as you see, there have been keyframes that have been produced based on the video. You can click right on a keyframe. For example, you choose just one
this
and
one that
click on
seems to
it,
be
and
pretty
then yeah.
recognizable.
So basically, no, what you can do is reverse image search, please.
Reverse image.
Yeah.
This
So
one?
basically,
Okay,
yeah,
so
exactly.
this is another Chrome extension that I have called RevI, which is the one that I use for this kind of
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, exactly. There must be another function as well.
Okay, so this is giving me a lot of the same claim: leaked Israeli Apache helicopter shoots, blah blah blah. Do we have any dates here? Do we have to individually go into each account?
So actually, I think there was another function on the Invid itself that actually used aggregation of different search engines, actually, to look whether the video is present in other in other channels or things like that.
Was it video analysis or was it keyframes?
It was within keyframes, yeah.
Within keyframes.
It was
'Cause I'm
within
not finding
keyframes. Yeah,
that
it is indeed within
specifically.
keyframes. But yeah, apologies for that. This my information has become also a little bit rusty as well, given that I haven't worked with verification for the past couple of years now.
Yeah, let's see. 'Cause
But so yeah, basically this is it indeed. So this shows you whether where can you find the video. I think what we use the keyframes for, it was basically for duplicates more than anything. Now we are finding more and more. Of course, the video is everywhere. So for example, if this video is sold to a news agency with a claim that this video is one and only and exclusive, you can come to the conclusion, well, it's not, because there are multiple duplicates, thousands of it, which are present actually.
I'm trying to find a way to manage the the time scale at which we're looking for this, because obviously since this video was published, there's been a bunch of people reposting it, so you're gonna get a lot of recent reposts. But look, you can also find the same video here from January of this year, so clearly it's not from the current conflict. You can find it here from October of this year, before the October 7th attack, so it's clearly not.
But it would be interesting to actually take a look at that and see.
So there was, what was it? Wow, did I lose it? So that January 23, boom.
Yeah, let's just check that together.
Yeah, let's do that one.
Because
and let's open there's March 23. Oh, there's May 13, 2020. It's
but
old.
I'm under the impression that we are seeing that maybe there is a reason behind that.
It looks like these are websites that are we finding the exact match? Doesn't look like it. Nope, these are not the right links. So are there other matches that
let's
we can
actually use the maybe we can use actually the time frame tool set. Like there is a tool that if you scroll up, I think you can
I wasn't able to find this, but I can just look for it in Google reverse image search, so I can just copy the image address here. Images.google.com and search by image, paste link, search, and here it's the same tool. Okay, how the hell did we, because I remember being able to search by date on this, so I'm really surprised that I'm not able to do that right now. Manage,
it's obviously like on we're becoming rusty as well.
Yeah, no, this is frustrating because this is not the same tool that I'm used to. This is not the same interface that I'm used to having.
Okay, well, like I just talking to our viewer. So basically, this is just a rudimentary way of checking for duplicates which are present out there. And imagine if somebody publishes this, and then we check the time frame of the video. And then by running a very simple check, you realize that this video has actually is an archive that has been published, I don't know, months or years ago, and is not really actually showing what it is claiming to show. But as I said, this is only one way of actually trying to verify an image. And these are some things that experts do. And in order to be verify images and videos. And for example, Bellingcat does this on a very in-depth level. And of course, I cannot in any way compare what Bellingcat does with what we do here, but yeah.
Yeah, no, this is just trying to be like, how can a normal news consumer use this, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Still trying to find how to narrow down the date thing, if I can find that, because I was sure that there used to be a way to do it, but this is not the interface that I'm used to.
Basically, normally it should be in the tool set, but for some reason the tool set is not showing.
Let me just see. I'm just gonna type a random thing. So Apache helicopter I'm gonna do that, and now I'm gonna use it here. Nope. Time, we want anything, no, custom. Anytime, tools. What the hell is going on with these tools right now? I used to have a lot of like custom range, past week, past month, past year, type, color, size. More. Since when is there not a custom range on this? This is crazy. Okay, so this is not going too well.
It's okay. I mean,
anyway. Yeah, this is weird because I was sure there was a tool to be able to find with a custom range so that you can exclude the dates at which it worked, but it's not working out right now, so I guess I'll figure it out for next stream.
yeah,
We can
of
do it
course.
better next time.
But and of course now we've chosen a video which is really duplicated a lot across the web.
Yeah,
So
that too.
you have to really narrow it down in order to be okay to see where was the source, where was it put out. And then within the video, the verification experts look at what the person claims the video is showing and what is indeed what is being shown indeed actually. And this one, for example, really, I don't think either Tristan or either Stan or I have the knowledge or the expertise to say exactly what is happening. And of course, it has to be someone who has in-depth knowledge actually, or is able to locate the information faster. But I'm pretty sure this one has also gone under the hammer of verification by many people. But
yeah,
then
no, it has been verified and found as just a repost of an old video from, I have it on Newsweek here, which is why I used it as an example, but I wanted to use it as an example of how we could just reproduce the same results.
Yeah.
However, the footage is not of Israeli Apache helicopters firing on civilians at the Supernova Festival. It was posted on October 9th by Israeli Defense Forces 2 days after the attack. And yeah, it was recent, but it was not of the music festival.
I see.
It was footage of Apache helicopters firing on Gaza, not at the music festival. Now, of course, you could say, well, it is the Israeli Defense Force, which doesn't always post very reliable information, but there's no reason for them to post footage of them shooting on their own civilians and claiming it's something else. But it is interesting that other people online took that footage and claimed it to be whatever they wanted it to be for their own purposes.
Exactly. And I completely agree with you about taking videos that are published by IDF, MOD. It's the same thing as well. Like, for example, the videos that are put out by the Defense Ministry of Russia. If you look at them, they combine a lot of archive footage with new footage, or sometimes they just publish archive footage and then they claim it's showing something else. This is something that I have seen a lot on briefing videos that have been published by the spokesperson of the Ministry of Defense of Russia, that they've used archive footage in order to talk about recent gains. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and what I think is particularly interesting here from a sociological point of view is like this account, this Syrian girl account, reposted this footage that was posted by Israel showing, oh, look, it's Israel firing people in Gaza. And she posted it completely flipping the narrative of Israel, knowing full well that this would be fairly easy to verify. And it kind of reminds me on the flip side of another example that I think is incredibly weird and egregious. It's that, let me see if I can find it. The video of an IDF soldier or spokesperson who was doing a media tour of the hospital, of the Shifa hospital a couple of days ago, and everyone has seen this because it's become a massive joke online. It's the calendar, IDF calendar. Let me see if I can find the original video. Does someone in chat have the link to the original video that I'm talking about? If you know which one I'm talking about, which I'm sure someone is. Okay.
In Arabic.
Found it?
No, this is not the original. It's an edit. Let me see if I have one. That is the whole thing. Okay, this one
has his own shift. Guarding.
It'll be close enough. So this is the video I'm talking, or a segment of the video I'm talking about.
Evidence. In this room, there is a list. This list, in Arabic, this list says, we are in an operation. The operation against Israel started in the 7th of October. This is a Guardian list where every terrorist writes his name and every terrorist has his own shift.
It is incredible that that person would claim those things, and the Israel's government has since said that it was an honest mistake on the part of this person. This is way more than an honest mistake, because you look at, he was making a specific claim as to what this meant. Oh, this means we are in operation, and these are the names of terrorists. It turns out this is just a calendar. These are, in Arabic, the days of the week. And it is so weird that someone would, in front of a camera, make these claims, knowing that it's going to go online, without realizing, hey, there are Arabic speakers online, even Arabic speakers who support us, who are going to see this and realize that we have no credibility when we say these kinds of things. And it's so, this is what I don't understand, is people posting just stupid propaganda. Like, this is just at a level that is mind-boggling, when it's so, like, there is no arguing that, oh, like, maybe these aren't the days of the week, maybe the terrorists have the same names as, like, maybe the terrorists are called Monday, Tuesday, etc. I don't know how you could possibly put this video out, and it's just weird to me. Yeah. I don't know if you have anything to add to that specifically.
It's interesting for me to say, well, my Arabic is really rusty, I must say. Can you actually maximize the video one more time? This is very interesting. Yeah, it is indeed showing the date that the thing happened. And interestingly, next to it is the name that was allegedly given to the operation. So it is referred to as the Rhodes Storm, if I'm not mistaken. But it is indeed, these are indeed the days of the week. And yeah, I can also like make sense that, yeah, it says Friday on it and things like that. Yes, I can make sense of Thursday, Friday. So in that sense, it is really ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable, because there was an entire way longer video of an entire tour of the hospital where they did a bunch of things. And the BBC actually did something interesting. They went over some of the inconsistencies in some of the footage that they saw. And what's interesting is to see just how damaging Israel, how much damage Israel is doing to itself when it's making these kinds of claims.
Yeah, exactly. But as you also showed in the previous example of this Palestinian activist that by a tweet that we saw, it had got millions and millions of retweets as
Yeah.
well, or likes.
Yeah.
That it can happen on both sides, actually. Someone can claim a video is showing that, but it's not showing, actually. Someone can claim that this calendar or whatever it is showing something. But the problem is that maybe it's easy to say, hey, not take everything on the face value. But actually, many people do, and that's when it becomes problematic. So, yeah.
Yeah, I saw this clip
Well, BBC Verify has been examining the different sources of information.
that I thought was a pretty good summary of these.
Examining the different sources of information that, well, BBC Verify has been examining the different sources of information that we
Sorry
have
for
on
the-
this.
Let me see if I can actually find the full screen video for this. It doesn't really matter that much. BBC Verify. Is it this? Anyway, I guess we can just go with this, even if it's not full screen. It
Yeah,
doesn't
sure.
matter that
Yeah,
much.
sure.
Unless I can find it really quickly, but yeah, it doesn't matter.
Israel described the Al-Shifa hospital as the main headquarters for Hamas's terrorist activity. This IDF animation, posted in late October, claims to represent a Hamas tunnel system underneath the hospital. But having been inside Al-Shifa since early Wednesday, Israel's yet to produce evidence of the tunnels. It has allowed the BBC and Fox News to film at the hospital, though only locations of Israel's choice.
This is what they found.
Israel also released its own 7-minute video, which BBC Verify has analysed. A watch, visible in that video, suggests it was filmed a few hours before the BBC arrived. And this IDF video was posted, then deleted, then reposted, this time without a section referring to an Israeli soldier who'd been held hostage.
I don't know when this was used the last time.
Also in the video, we see a room with an MRI machine.
And if you zoom in and we get some light over here, what you will be able to see is military equipment.
Yeah,
The
so
BBC
this is
was
interesting. This is the video that I'd seen originally, where this guy's showing behind the MRI machine this piece of equipment. And he makes the point in the video, hey, we didn't place these here. We just opened the bags and saw that it was safe to touch, but we didn't stage any of this. Turns out in a
BBC was
different
shown the
video
same-
of the idea of showing other journalists the same spot of the same MRI machine, oh, look, it's completely different. It's a completely different set of weapons. They just found more weapons and put them there.
And what we see in the two videos doesn't precisely match. For example, there's one gun in the IDF video, two by the time of the BBC footage. Israel has told BBC Verify this is because more weaponry and terrorist assets were discovered throughout the day.
And as always, an AK-47.
Israel also says its video is a single shot with no edits. But this appears to be an edit. We don't know the reasons for that edit, nor how significant it is. The IDF, though, says suggestions it's manipulating the media are incorrect. The IDF video also shows military equipment in other locations, though we can't verify how it came to be there. And what we see in this IDF video doesn't equate to Israel's description of Al-Shifa as an operational command center for Hamas. The US is using a different phrase, saying Al-Shifa was used as a command and control node. That implies a much smaller facility. And as Israel makes the case for this operation, let's consider the Geneva Conventions, the foundations of the rules of war. They state that hospitals can lose their protection if they are used to commit acts harmful to the enemy. Israel believes Hamas has done this in Al-Shifa and says that what's been discovered so far is just the start.
And what we have found, I think, is only the tip of the iceberg.
Israel is adamant this hospital was a command center, but for now, at least, it's either not found supporting evidence or it's not sharing it. Back to you, Sophie.
Yeah, and so it seems like even some mainstream media sources that so far have been, when the IDF is stating things explicitly have been kind of taking them at their word. And it seems like they've done a lot of damage to their own reputation, which honestly shouldn't really be a surprise because this has been the case for a long time. But some of the things that the IDF has been sharing in the last few weeks kind of reminds me of like, for example, Ida, have you seen that Mein Kampf Arabic edition that was found supposedly in a child's bedroom in Gaza?
I saw that.
That reminded me of something that we saw early in the invasion of Ukraine, I don't remember if it was in Ukraine that the Russian government supposedly found evidence, or if it was a Ukrainian cell in Russia. But the parallels are pretty interesting.
Well, parallels are really interesting.
I don't know if
Exactly.
you know what I'm referring to, but I'll show it
I
on
know
screen
which
in a
one.
second too.
I know which one you're referring to exactly. But yeah, I saw actually a comment by one of our viewers as well that, like, yes, governments into like Russia go into strong go to lengths actually to for their propaganda. Yeah. Okay. This is interesting.
Yeah, so this is Isaac Herzog, the Israeli president, who was showing an Arabic copy of Mein Kampf supposedly found in a child's bedroom. It's funny how they always talk about a child's bedroom. It was the same thing with the Al Shifa hospital, where they laid out a bunch of weapons and explosives and rocket launchers in a child's bedroom and saying, look, we found this in a child's bedroom, where there is no chance that those weapons would be stored in that child's bedroom. They were just laid out there because it's so much more impactful to show it in a child's bedroom, I think. It just seems crazy to think if it is which it is a hospital, it is a child's room. So how could they, even if Hamas was using the hospital as a command center, supposedly with tunnels under the hospital and equipment and all of that, why would they therefore store explosives and ammunition and rocket launchers in children's rooms? It is the question. And it seems pretty obvious that it's just more impactful to show it in a child's bedroom rather than the other way around. Let me find that
Yeah,
Russian
exactly.
Ukraine. Sorry, go ahead.
One of the viewers actually said something interesting, is that, like, we have to be skeptical. Yeah, that's actually maybe a good way to put it, that you have to be skeptical a little bit, especially in the context of a conflict on such a scale. You have to be skeptical of what you're saying, because not everyone has the full information, or everything is maybe framed in a certain way. So yes, by all means, be skeptical. Actually read various sources, ask questions, of course, if you're interested. If you're not interested, of course, that's another question. But yeah, I think that's a good rule to go with.
You don't always have to have a strong opinion on something. It's completely fine to see a piece of information and go, you know what? I don't know. I'm going to wait for more information. Or to decide not to take it at face value at first. You don't have to land on one side or another. In this case, I think some of these cases, when it comes to IDF statements on the Al Shifa hospital, are pretty clear and fairly easy to debunk, but and have been thoroughly debunked since then. But even if something seems possible and you're just skeptical of it because of the source, it's fine to not dismiss it out of hand and just say, I'm gonna wait until there's more information. But yeah, I'm still looking for that.
Yeah.
Let me see. Russia.
One of our viewers I asked a good question, although I think it was more like directed to you. And they wanted to know what you thought about Al Jazeera, because they are obviously funded by the Qatari government. And yeah, I think their coverage has as far as I see, has been quite strongly pro-Palestine as well. But what do you think on that?
I think Al Jazeera does a lot of good work. On this specific conflict, the thing is, Al Jazeera has always been very, very, very pro-Palestine. And what's important to keep in mind is that it's to the point where they're not really presenting any of the opposing evidence in a lot of cases, but they do really, really important work. And honestly, from what I've seen since the start of this conflict, they're one of the only media companies that is in interviews pushing back with the most force against some of the more outlandish claims, or even some of the justifications for Israel's operation in Gaza, for their refusal to open some evacuation routes and all of that, for their policy on what has been described, and I think rightfully so, as collective punishment early in the operation, when they cut off electricity, cut off water, and all of that. Very few media companies were as forceful as Al Jazeera in pointing out just the inhumanity of that. Does that mean that Al Jazeera is perfect all the time? No one is perfect all the time. But I think they're still a really important voice. Just don't necessarily always take everything they say at pure face value, because there can be another side. But I'm not saying that to say the truth is always in the middle, because as you know, if you've seen my video on media bias, I don't subscribe to that idea of the truth always being in the middle. But the truth isn't always on the side that you want it to be as well. Like that, both of those things are important to keep in mind.
Yeah, exactly.
I found so this was a photo released by the Russian Ministry of Interior of supposedly, let me find exactly what the context was. It was supposedly a Nazi cell, pro-Ukrainian Nazi cell inside Russia, if I remember correctly. Neo-Nazis plotting to kill Putin's propagandist. The thing that was really funny is this like incredibly new swastika shirt. These like this green wig here. But the thing that most people made fun of were the Sims video game boxes in the middle. And there was no explanation from Russia as to what the hell that was doing there. Do you remember what the hypothesis was of what happened there?
No, unfortunately, I don't. But do you remember?
Yeah, there was a hypothesis that is impossible to confirm. That was that when they were gathering the items to stage this photo, which is very probably staged, and I'm not gonna say that with certainty because you never know, but almost certainly staged. Whoever told the people, hey, we need to go buy these items, so go get me a shirt with a swastika, go get me other like disguises like a wig or something like that, and go give me SIM cards, so that we can say, oh look, they have different phone numbers, and because that's what intelligence and that's what spies have. And whoever got that information bought SIM game cartridges instead of phone SIM cards. And did not think of it until afterwards. Seems incredibly ridiculous. It seems there's no way they're that dumb to actually do that, but I can't think of another explanation unless, okay, maybe like those boxes had like hidden data in them that is not actually the Sims. I don't know. Russia never explained it, and it was never it was just left there essentially.
If you publish a photo like that, it has to come with a big disclaimer about the Sims. Otherwise,
no, but like this is what I'm reminded of. Like early in the invasion of Ukraine, Russia was doing a lot of work to try to present everything Ukraine was doing as like pro-Nazi, or like, oh look, there are some far-right elements in Ukraine's military, but there are far-right elements in every military and other. So you can literally point at, you can find Like there was a huge scandal a few years ago of the German military and the Swiss military and the Austrian military having a neo-Nazi movement in them. There are
Yes, exactly.
neo-Nazi infiltrations in literally every U.S. state in police and like law enforcement and military as well. If you want to find that kind of information to like present a country as far right or as pro-Nazi or whatever, you can find it. But this is a very like hilarious example of Russia trying to do that in an absolute fail. And I'm not saying this is necessarily the same. I don't know if this book was actually found in a child's bedroom or not. And it looks like a very, like, I think they were both saying in a child's bedroom and on a Hamas soldier's body. But it seems really fishy to me. And it's something that I'm not as I'm not going to dismiss it as strongly as some of the other things we saw from the IDF a few minutes ago, but it's still something to take with a huge grain of salt for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I must excuse myself because unfortunately I'm not doing really well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how you're feeling.
Yeah, actually, so I have been on now for the past 2 hours. I will give it a couple of other minutes, but like my voice is really disappearing actually. Yeah, before I go, I would like to ask our viewers who tuned in, thank you so much, first of all. And like, if you have anything, any specific questions that you would like to ask regarding our past video or our last video, and also any specific questions that you have on Iran, which I might be able to answer. Maybe it would be the time to ask those questions before I actually log off. But yeah.
Yeah, let's wait until chat syncs up with us to see
Of course.
if they say anything. Let me try to quickly go through chat to see if I missed anything important.
Yeah, I think there was a question for you, or there was a comment about the picture, actually.
About which picture? Let's see.
Well, the picture with the Sims.
Do you see the comment? I'm still trying to read through it.
Not. Hang on a second. It was actually a comment about the book that was lying there on the bed. That was yeah, exactly. There was a book lying on the bed on the photo that was allegedly showing Ukrainian Nazis or someone like yeah, something like that.
Oh wait,
it was a comment that was posted by Jeremiah Senchenko. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, but yeah, Senchenko.
Oh yeah, okay. There's one book on the photo which is written by hardline neo-Nazi Russian homophobe, and it's really illogical that they purport that it belongs to a Ukrainian. I mean, yeah, that's true. It was a really weird story when it came out a couple of years ago. Yeah. We could go more into that story and look more into like what explanations there were about this. But I just wanted to bring it up as an example of something that this reminded me of right here.
Yeah. One of our viewers asked whether I wanted to advertise my other works. Actually, so far, like the video that I did with Tristan, this is what I'm really proud of. I have done cultural news mostly before joining the news agency where I met Stan. Other than that, I also sometimes write for Newsweek. Actually, the latest that I wrote for them was the one that I talked about already. That was on the morality police in Iran. And I don't want to, jinx it. I'm currently working on something else, but it's a little bit unclear as well how that's gonna go. I'm still waiting for updates, but it has to do with actually with homosexual rights and transgender rights in Iran. And hopefully it would be interesting as well. It would be researching and reading a lot of legal documents. And I look forward to doing that. and hopefully it will turn out interesting, and let's see how it's gonna go. But I'm really excited about that. And yeah, other than that, yeah, not so much at the moment, I must say. Just working on little side things, and hopefully also getting a move on my PhD proposal, which is in a way written, but yeah, just perfecting that.
Yeah, let's see if we do another video together soon in the next few months, and what it can be about as well.
Sure, definitely, yes.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Thank you,
thank
everyone.
you so much for joining. I'm gonna stay on for a little bit longer if there's more things that chat wants to discuss or look into. But thank you so much for joining, and yeah, I'll see you soon for like whatever we do one of these days.
Thank you. And before I actually mess this up, shall I just like end the call, and it won't disrupt anything, right?
Yeah, you can just end the call. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much. This was quite interesting, the first for me, and I hope you have a good time wherever you are in the world. And I hope to catch you up soon with all of you. Bye bye. Bye. Bye.
Okay. So, and I have some company right here. Wait. This is my cat Nina, who just jumped on my chair. And right next to me, I have my other cat. And this is my cat Ness. And they've been keeping me company here since the start of the stream. Okay, yeah, so I have been wanting to do more work on those kinds of like news verification. Yeah, that's okay. Create you. That no problem at all. I'm glad you were able to listen. So yeah, I've been wanting to get more into that kind of news verification, like debunking work, and it's not something that I have a lot of experience with other than just regular research tools. I'm really disappointed that apparently Google, someone in the comments in chat confirmed that apparently Google restricted some of the tools that we used to have to like do more specific search queries. But I have a former, like a colleague of both mine and Ida's that I've been in touch with, who is like, this is specifically his job to do these kinds of forensic analysis of videos. And I've been really wanting to talk with him and have him show me more things. Hopefully we can do that on stream actually, and he can actually walk me through some of the things that we struggled to do with Ida. But yeah, it would be really cool to look more into that sometime soon. Is there anything? Yeah, are there any questions that I missed in chat because I wasn't able to follow throughout the entire live that you would like to follow up on and ask again? And I'll wait for a few seconds for chat to sync up. Nope, doesn't look like anyone is following up on that. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it there for today. This was really fun. It was really nice to Do you think Trump has a high chance of winning the upcoming elections? Okay, that's a really good question. To me, I think it really, really depends on what's going to happen with the current court cases with Trump. As things stand right now, it would be an extremely tight election, and it seems like Trump would probably have the upper hand. Right now, they're kind of neck and neck. Trump seems to be ahead in some of the polls, but it kind of varies. It's been changing a lot over the past few weeks. But the thing to keep in mind is Trump consistently has the Republican Party, not necessarily as a whole, but Trump specifically has outperformed polls since 2016, essentially, because people don't want to say that they're going to vote for Trump until they do end up voting for Trump. So if Trump seems to be close to Biden and slightly ahead of him, that probably means that he's much more ahead of them than we realize, even though they've adjusted some of the polling to make up for the fact that that he was underestimated in previous elections. However, it seems really hard to, and I realize that this is a weird thing to say, considering that every single time there's an election in the US, people make fun of the outcome, whether it was 2016, whether it was 2004 when George W. Bush was reelected, which in hindsight doesn't seem as crazy, but at the time that sounded ridiculous. Everyone outside of the US was saying, how the hell could they reelect that guy? And what was I saying? Even despite all that, despite the fact that the US often seems to take crazy decisions like 2004, like 2016, it seems really impossible for them to elect someone who at that point could be doing a campaign from prison. So it's really going to depend on what comes out of those, 96 indictments. I don't know how many different criminal trials he's having right now. The one that's ongoing in New York for fraud is probably going to be the least consequential ones. The ones that we really need to look out for are the classified documents, the election meddling in the Georgia case, especially because in Georgia, for historical reasons, the governor, even though he's a Republican, can't pardon Trump. And Georgia being the Georgia trial being a state trial, not a federal trial, Trump, if he got elected, wouldn't be able to pardon himself. So essentially, he wouldn't have an easy way out of prison if he was convicted in that trial. So it's really going to be a matter of what happens in those criminal trials, and I think those are probably the most likely to determine the outcome of the election. Elias asked on that topic, what are your thoughts on Project 2025, the Republican Manifesto? I haven't looked at this. I've heard a lot about this, and maybe it's something that we can look at next time we do a stream. I don't want to wait 2 months like I did between last stream and this one to do another one. I would like to... Right now I'm working on 2 videos. The next 2 videos for the main videos for the channel. Next one is going to be in the next couple of weeks at most, like by the end of the month, basically, should be the next video, and the one after that should be, hopefully, I don't want to make any promises that I can't keep, but hopefully in December, as early as possible in December. But I would like to ease into making more lives, doing I don't know if anyone in chat right now saw or was watching the live that we did last time, where I talked about this idea that I had of just essentially doing the researching news stories live rather than coming with a prepared list of news stories and script, and like a script of oh, this is what we're covering today, and kind of bouncing off of what chat is saying and what links chat is sending me, and outsourcing some of the research to chat if there are things that can be found there. So I would like to start easing into that, maybe making 1 live a month and then 1 live every couple of weeks, like 2 lives a month, and eventually what I would like to do would be one live every week. And once we get to that, like maybe in the next live, we can look at Project 2025. And if you say there is an angle of how it would affect Europe, other than just everything the U.S. does affects Europe, that's definitely something that we can look into. Let's see. Yeah, okay. I can go quickly over the Dutch stuff because I just had a conversation about it just a couple of days ago that really gave me a lot of clear understanding. Let me go find the poll that someone sent earlier in the evening, like the charts. Here it is. Give me a second. There you go. Okay. So let's go over this. Is it this? Okay, this is my version that I wanted to show you. So this is these are the poll numbers for all the parties in the Dutch election from April 2021 to the election, which is in 3 days. So, to give you context, VVD is Mark Rutte's, Rutte, if you want to pronounce it the Dutch way. That's his party. Mark Rutte has been the longest serving, I think the longest serving Dutch prime minister ever. But he's had multiple governments. He's been increasingly unpopular, and his government collapsed. He decided that he wasn't even going to run to represent his party in the next elections. So that's what's been happening in the last few months. His party has been going down. We'll talk about the last few weeks in a second. And the Netherlands has been having a massive, let me see if I can find it. You've maybe seen this in the news. A massive wave of farmers' protests about EU regulations when it comes to the number of animals that they can have and nitrates-based, what's it called? Nitrogen-based agricultural products. I'm blanking on the word. I'm really tired. And so BBB is the party that came out of that movement and that really shot up in the polls, not necessarily because of the protests themselves, but just because it was wait, let me just check something very quickly. Because it was an alternative to the current status quo. I'm just checking things on the side. Okay. Then, so this is why there's this huge spike here. We're going to talk in a few minutes about what happened afterwards. Let's look at PVV. Which one is that again? And this is the party of... Oh yeah, that's the party of Geert Wilders. Okay, so... Party for Freedom. Let's put that one. This is a party that's been in the news a lot because this guy is talked about a lot. He's kind of the Dutch Marine Le Pen. They get along quite a bit. He's mostly the Dutch equivalent of the National Front to some extent. Less radical in some ways, more radical in others. I will know more about this once I go to the Netherlands in a few days. But yeah, this guy is incredibly good at self-promotion and has been in the news internationally probably more than the actual established politicians. The thing is, he has never been in government, but he's been in politics for a really long time, always as the opposition figure from the far right. Whether or not you want to call them the far right is, some would say, up for debate. I think like he's anti-EU and very anti-immigration. I'll have a closer look at some of his other nuances of his positions by the time I make a video about the election. But what's interesting is that in recent weeks, in recent years, he's been trying to moderate his image the same way Meloni from Italy has been doing, the same way Marine Le Pen has been doing with the what's called the de-demonization campaign in France, in order to hopefully not necessarily be prime minister himself, although he wasn't doing too bad in the polls, but at least be part of a governing coalition, which would be a first. Kind of like I made a short right before the Spanish elections a few months ago, where Vox, it looked like they were likely to be in government for the first time, the far right party from Spain that has ties to the Franco family and a lot of very iffy characters in that party as well. That is a trend that is happening in every country in Europe. Turns out the Spanish election went better than expected, just like the Polish election went better than expected in terms of the far right gaining more ground. But yeah, this is, even though those two elections did seem to go slightly better than expected, it's still the overall trend that's been happening lately. Why do I not have these wait, color this, copy, and let me put this here. Let me just catch up with what chat is saying because I saw a few comments. No, I'm not Dutch. I'm French American. Johan Prince. Okay, so we did VVD, PVV. Then we get to D66. This is the very progressive party that has been in a governing coalition with VVD. CDA, wait, I'm struggling to tell which the difference between these two lines right here. I would guess this one is CDA, which is the Christian Democrats Party. They're, in some ways, they're kind of like the Christian Democrats in Germany, which is like conservative on some points and more appealing to like the Christian, Christianity, depending on who's looking at it, has very contradictory faces. Like there are very conservative right-wing people who claim to take their values from Christianity, and the same happens from a more humanitarian, humane perspective. And CDA is kind of the Christian Democrats in that way. They are conservative, but on some issues they're more moderates, and they essentially have been with VVD the two main parties on the right for the last few years. The next party is PVDA, which is the center-left, the equivalent of the French Socialist Party, although there's also a party called the Socialist Party here. But the French Socialist Party isn't really that socialist. It's a center-left social democratic party. That's the case of PVDA as well. They were the main leftist party until recent years, but they, even though it's not visible in this poll, have been losing a lot of ground in recent years, in part for having worked with VVD, which lost them a lot of credibility with the left. And what they've done recently, right here, is join forces with GL, which is the Green Party, this party right here. So you see GL, that line ends right here, and PVDA, that line ends right here. And now this is the new version of those two parties put together, which it looks like ends up being more than the sum of their parts. GL PVDA is actually polling a lot better than either of them combined were before they decided to merge. And finally, the main reason why this party kind of collapsed, well, yeah, there's the PVDA thing, and there's also this new yellow party, which is NCS, New Social Contract. This is a party that was just founded extremely recently, as you can see right here, by a former CDA politician who left his party over a a disagreement when it comes to a tax scandal that happened recently called, let me find it. I wrote it down a couple of days ago, so let me find. It's the Tuslager affair. Tuslagen affair. And it is essentially the Dutch childcare benefits scandal. Is it this? Yes, it is this. If you want to look into this, it was essentially institutional racism by this childcare benefits, government benefits, which would be way more suspicious of minorities for no reason other than they were minorities. And this politician from New Social Contract, Netherlands, boom. This guy was actually much more concerned about this affair than other people in his party, which is why there was a massive rift between them, this party, and he decided to create his own party, which is why CDA has been collapsing over the Zuschlager affair, and now you're seeing people who are, BBB was getting a lot of support as an alternative, but now that there's this combination of parties here that is refusing to work with VVD again, or this party here that is a new party that people kind of see as a kind of new blood, being like, not new blood because he's a politician who's been in Dutch politics for a really long time, but it's an alternative to the mainstream parties that have been in politics for a really long time. That's why we're seeing like a lot of shifts. At the same time, you're seeing VVD going up because now they're being represented by a different politician than Rutte. VVD, no, that's not it. And who's the current candidate? Is it her? Let me just make sure I'm not giving the wrong information. Yeah, I'm struggling to find it as quickly as I would like to. But yeah, essentially what you're having is a battle between the people who want things to stay the way they are because it's been benefiting them over the last few years, like basically the same people who benefit from neoliberalism, and people who want a completely new approach, either a completely new far-right approach, as this party has been going up in the polls in recent years, or just a completely new party, as we're seeing from this one that just like shot up, as we're seeing from these new parties, this one a combination of two other ones, this one a party that's being created from someone leaving one of the older parties. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. I'm going to know, that's essentially the extent of my knowledge at the moment, but I'm going to know a lot more about it in the next couple of weeks as I'm going there for the election, and then I'm going to be researching it some more after I do as I read the script for my next, not the next video that I'm finishing right now on Polish politics, but the one after that that's going to be on the Dutch election and on the kind of the situation of Dutch politics at the moment. Narlafen, I'm not sure, because I don't have an editor to handle streams for myself, so it's kind of hard to handle everything at the moment. I still have to upload the interviews that we did from the Iran video to Patreon. So at the moment I'm kind of swamped. I'm thinking I'll either have this live available as its own thing, and I won't have the time to go through it to give a timestamp, or yeah, I'm not sure what to do about it for now. But when we make when I do more lives in the future, I will definitely do what I can to have the infrastructure, so that I'm able to put out clips of the live and able to have timestamps in the comments and all of that. But that's going to take a little bit longer to ease into for sure. Was there anyone from the Netherlands who can tell me if I forgot something important or made a big mistake in my summary of what's going on in Dutch politics at the moment? No, Ida, these are poll results from the last few months ahead of the election. Functie elders. I'll have to look into that. Nalafen. Wait, no, that's Joran saying Functie elders. Okay, let me look into that. Yeah, I'm writing that down to research ahead of the election. So thank you for that. Nalafen, I am kind of right now my priority for the channel is to get it to a point where I'm able to just pay as much of my bills as I can, and I've been offered by a few people to like do work for free, and I'm not entirely comfortable relying on people doing free labor for me that I can't yet guarantee any form of payment from. So I'm still figuring out what to do about that. So I can be interested in an editor, but for the moment, I would like to grow the channel organically on my own to get closer to the point where I can actually start to pay people for their work before I actually start to take on someone regularly on board to help me out with some of the work. I don't feel like I'm there yet to the even if I get closer where I can't pay them yet, I would like to get to the point where I know that I can start paying them soon before I actually start taking someone on board, if you know what I mean. But if you have someone who wants to get in touch with me, I have a contact email on my YouTube, and I can always discuss it with them if they're interested. Yeah, it seems like GroenLinks, the Green Party and PvdA are not agreeing on much. There's like GroenLinks is more progressive than PvdA, which is more of a labor party, like a labor um, like not as quote unquote woke. And apparently there's a lot of disagreement over the candidate, the PvdA candidates that's representing both parties, that a lot of the younger, more progressive Green Party supporters are not happy with because he's an old white dude who they don't feel represents the younger generation. So that's also an interesting thing, is that this new party that's doing quite well in the polls is kind of not necessarily doing as well internally as the polls would suggest they are doing. It's complicated. Okay then. Well, this was still I still have to get used to streaming. This is not something I'm comfortable with at all, and it's something that I'm interested in getting better at. So thank you so much everyone for sticking with me. This was fun, and hopefully we'll be doing some more very soon. So yeah, wants to be yeah, look, and that's who I was talking about was Timmermans. Yeah, hopefully we can do this again very soon. Maybe after I finish the Poland video, I can do another one about that when it comes out, because Poland, my shorts on the Polish election have been doing extremely well on Instagram and TikTok. So, yeah, hopefully that video gets a bit more traction than the Iran video has gotten so far. I'm still hopeful that the Iran video can get some traction in the future, but it's not something that was immediately in the news, and I was kind of hoping that my video would stand on its own rather than needing to rely on the news cycle to push it. So yeah, this whole channel is still a work in progress that I need to figure out, but yeah, I'm really happy with the support that I've been getting, and with the feedback, and with the work that I've been able to do. If you guys aren't already subscribed on some of my other social media, obviously you're watching on YouTube, so I don't need to give you the YouTube channel, but you can find me on Instagram at instagram.com/ wait, I can just give you the handle. It's at barelyinfo. Same on TikTok at barelyinfo. And of course, if you want to help grow the channel so I can actually make more ambitious decisions in the future, the best way to help is on Patreon, which is patreon.com/ barelyinformed. And that's really the thing. If I could triple the number of Patreon supporters that I have at the moment in the next few months, which doesn't seem that unrealistic considering I've only existed as a YouTube channel for a few months at the moment, that would be the kind of thing that could get me to the point where I could start to hire more editors and like have more consistent content coming from lives and coming from other things. Yeah, I do have Twitter as well. I don't use it very much. I've mostly just been using it for research. My Twitter is at barelystan. Whoops. Yeah, as you can see, I barely use Twitter. Profile, there you go. At barelystan. I opened Twitter for the first time in a long time a few days ago, just to find some information that I'd seen there, and I gave it kind of a makeover. But yeah, you can also follow me there, but don't expect regular content. Cool. I think I'm gonna leave it there for tonight. Again, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys